thank you so much for joining me for class today. We are going to be making a freshly milled whole grain banana bread. So let's get all of our ingredients together and let's get started. Before we start mixing our banana bread, first we need to preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and then also prep our pan for baking. This is a 1.5 pound loaf pan, or I think it's about 10 by 5 inches in dimension here. So we could butter and flour the pan, which there's nothing wrong with doing that. I do that often, but because I said this was a quick class, we are going to use parchment paper instead. And instead of cutting it to the pan, we're just gonna crumble it, because this actually helps the parchment paper mold to the pan a little bit better instead of like falling in on itself and kind of messing up the shape of your loaf. So crumble it up really well, open it back up, and then just line your pan with it, kind of push it into the corners, and it actually stays in place a lot better than if you just did it flat. So all I've done is I've just taken the parchment paper and pushed it down into the pan. I took the longer ends and put it over the long sides and just kind of pressed everything into the sides, and now we've got a pan that's ready to go. To start with, we need 240 grams of hard red winter wheat. So I'm using a Warthog variety that I get locally from Funk's Grove Heritage Fruit and Grains down in Funk's Grove, Illinois. We are going to mill these on the finest setting that we can get our mill at. So for me, I'm gonna listen, I'm gonna turn it on and I'm gonna go until my stones just start to tick, and then I'll back off just a hair. And they're already ticking. So here we have 240 grams of freshly milled flour, and to this I've added 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 3/4 teaspoons of salt, and I'm just going to use my finger just to kind of gently mix that in. We're going to set this aside and get started on our wet mixture. One of the most important things to remember when you're working with whole grain flour is that whole grain means that the bran is in there. The bran is very, very thirsty. So when you're baking with whole grain flour, that means you're going to need to add more moisture. And in this recipe, that moisture comes in the form of bananas. You'll want them absurdly ripe. I'm talking like almost completely black, if not all the way black, and you want them squishy. So if I'm looking at these right here, where you see that they are mostly yellow, these are not going to do a good job. This right here, I'm looking for something almost completely brown and black. It needs to be a little bit squishy. Even these, like when I pick it up, it just starts to open up. That's what I'm looking for, where they're starting to almost fall apart on you. That's what you're really looking for this recipe. So make sure that your bananas are not just kind of a little bit sort of kind of overripe. You want really, really ripe bananas here. And I'm also using more than I normally would for a white flour banana bread recipe. Okay, so next up is 200 grams of brown sugar in the bowl of a mixer that's been fitted with a paddle attachment. You want to put your stick of unsalted butter in there. That should be about 114 grams of butter for those of you who do not go by the stick. And we are going to cream it. Make sure you scrape down the bowl a couple of times through too. All right, now that our butter and sugar are creamed pretty well together, I'm adding a teaspoon of vanilla paste. You can also use vanilla extract. That works perfectly fine here. And 2 eggs. I'm going to give that butter a bit of a scrape just to loosen it from the sides of the bowl. And start mixing again. All right, mixer goes off. And now we are going to incorporate the banana into the mix. messy there. All right, give it another scrape just to make sure nothing's sticking, because these blades are not the, these paddles are not the greatest at making sure nothing sticks to the bottom there. All right, back on. This mixture is going to look very, very curdled, and I promise you it's totally fine. It will even out once you get the dry ingredients in. And last up is the flour, salt, and baking soda mixture, or baking powder mixture. I apologize for that. And that goes, and we're just gonna mix this just until you have no dry flour left. You don't wanna overbeat this, unless you really like tough banana bread. All right, and that is fully mixed. All right, everything is all mixed, and I'm just gonna give that bowl one more good scrape just to make sure there's nothing there. And we're good. So into our parchment lined pan it goes. And then you just wanna spread it into the edges of your pan so that everything is nice and flat and even. So for my palette, this is completely ready to go. But if you would like a sweet topping on top of this, you can mix 2 tablespoons of brown sugar with 2 tablespoons of white sugar or raw sugar or whatever sugar you want. Mix it with a teaspoon of cinnamon and sprinkle that on top if you want to dress this up a little bit. But for my palette, this is plenty sweet as it is. So I'm going to pop this into the oven for about 45 minutes. It's probably going to need another 5 minutes after that, but I usually like to check it at about 40 or 45 minutes. Total time is usually about 50 minutes. All right, let's see how she looks. Oh, that looks really good. It's nice and moist. Little tiny chunks of banana. Really nice flavor on that too. And you can just kind of see on the inside there. That's about what you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me in class today. I hope you enjoy your banana bread, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye! Today you're going to need some grains, some stuff. I'm going to be making